No matter where you live, there's probably an abandoned building or two nearby. While in most cases, the reasons for the abandonment are mundane, once in a while the story is far more interesting and creepy. Here are the true stories behind these spooky abandoned places. Doomed futurism. The famous abandoned pod houses of northern Taiwan reveal a vision of the future, 1970s style. Construction on the UFO-like abodes began in 1978. The plan was to use them for vacation resorts on 2 sites on the coast off of the East China Sea. According to the Taipei Times, financial troubles and irreconcilable differences between co-owners over the next decade ultimately doomed the on-again off-again project, which was halted in 1989. Rumors abound about the sites, including stories about a number of deaths during construction. Another story is that there's an old Dutch graveyard under one of the pod sites. Some also say a sculpture of a dragon, a symbol of luck, was partially destroyed to improve road access during the initial build, cursing the land. Regardless, the pod houses lay abandoned for 3 decades, accessed only by squatters, ghost hunters, and the weather, before demolition work began in 2008 at one of the sites to make way for a new resort. An attic full of secrets. The Willard Asylum for the Chronic Insane was built toward the end of the 19th century on the bank of Seneca Lake in upstate New York. Despite the now offensive name, the asylum reportedly offered so-called moral treatment, meaning the patients were treated well, especially for the time. Unfortunately, as with any place that attempts to look after severely ill people, there were lots of deaths. It's estimated that around half of all the patients who arrived never left. But that's not the creepiest part. When the asylum was closed down in the 90s, workers made a discovery in the attic. They found 400 suitcases carefully wrapped and labeled that had belonged to patients who had died. The average stay at Willard was 30 years, so staff packed a patient's possessions into the suitcase they had arrived with and stored them in the attic, where they remained as a time capsule for hundreds of forgotten lives. Suicide Hotel. The Hotel del Salto sits on high cliffs overlooking the Bogotá River in Colombia. It was built in that spot in 1923 for the view it offered of the spectacular Tequendama Falls nearby, and it was a popular destination for wealthy travelers for 60 years. Unfortunately, pollution in the river became so bad that tourism dwindled, and the hotel eventually closed in the 1990s and was left abandoned. According to legend, the falls was an important site for indigenous people during the Spanish conquest of the 1530s. Rather than submit to slavery, they chose to throw themselves off the falls and to their death, in the belief that they would transform into an eagle on the way down and fly away. After the Hotel del Salto closed, it reportedly became a popular spot for local people to try it for themselves. In 2013, the hotel was remodeled and converted into a museum. Creepy Tower, Creepier Hill. In an attempt to listen in on Soviet radio communications in Berlin during the Cold War, the US built a listening station on top of a hill in a forest near the border. It operated right up to the fall of the Berlin Wall, at which point it was abandoned. What makes this abandoned site extra creepy is that the hill the listening station was built on is not natural, but was in fact constructed from the remains of approximately 400,000 buildings from Berlin destroyed in the war. The man-made hill was named Teufelsberg, or Devil's Mountain. All that rubble was dumped there to cover up the remains of a Nazi military school that once occupied the site. The Allies reportedly tried to destroy the facility by blowing it up, but it ended up being easier to just bury the Nazi institution with an enormous pile of old rubble. Massacre turned memorial. Located in the center of France, Oradour-sur-Glane was a vibrant little village for centuries. That all changed following the Allied invasion of Normandy on June 6, 1944. In an apparent response to attacks from the emboldened French resistance on June 10th, a Nazi SS Panzer division entered the village and rounded up the residents. At first, they claimed to be doing an identity check, but once the villagers were all collected, they separated the women and children from the men and locked them in the church. When the massacre was over, 642 men, women, and children lay dead. The village was then ransacked and set on fire, and the SS left in the morning after drinking more than 20 bottles of champagne. After the war, the village ruins were left as a permanent monument to the atrocity, a warning for future generations.